Does everything have a bright side to it? Of course. Doesn't always outweigh the negatives, but everything has a bright side to it. This makes happiness a choice. And here we say that the discipline of being happy is the ultimate discipline. With that said, welcome to the Ultimate Discipline Podcast, where we meet with people who are practitioners of this exact discipline, and we hear their cool stories of cultivating happiness through challenges in their life. I am your host, Sean Greenspan. Let's get to it. Ashley, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Sean?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you so much for joining the show here. I'm in Maryland. We got to get together soon before I leave.
We do. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
It's the weather's so nice, and Baltimore in the spring and summer is it's a gorgeous place.
I know it is so nice. I was coming back from Canada and was gonna be scared I was gonna come back to like the 95 and humid Maryland that we get in like August, and it has just been absolutely stunning.
I don't mind the 95 and humid. Like that is peak season for me.
I like it. I'm definitely. I would say I'm more of a heat person than a cold person for sure. Like
Yeah.
that definitely. So Ashley, I was actually thinking about this morning how much I love life and how we get these random connections, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't even think you know the full story about like kind of how we met, because we met through Juliana.
That's right.
I was working one day. I get a random call from a Maryland number. I was like, I'll answer. From Maryland, might know him. She says, "Hi, is this Sean?" And I was like, I'm like, oh, is this someone like trying to sell me something? And it was Juliana, and she goes, "I'm calling because you know Marty Hine, and I'm calling like his references, and this was my best friend." And I was like, "Absolutely." So me and Juliana ended up like she had 5 minutes of questions, and then I asked her a question about her company. We ended up talking for an hour that day, and I've had her once on the podcast. And then it was like kind of after the podcast, she was like, "Sean, I want to introduce you to Ashley. She has this awesome company called Clymb." And when she started talking about what you do, right? Like I've been in like the behavioral health space for a while, and I've never heard someone kind of like doing what you're doing. So I was just thinking about how beautiful life magically connects people, and how grateful I was to meet you. And I'd love if you could kind of share with the audience what you're up to, because it's pretty cool.
Yeah, of course. Anytime I talk about Clymb, it's always I have to check in with myself. Like, where is the best place to start? It's a story with so many different entry points. But I'll start with the most prominent entry point, or the one that I talk about the most, and it's my background in education. Former educator here in Baltimore City, um, and former school leader. I was director of climate and culture of a K through 8 school, and responsible for the emotional health of all of the staff and all of the students. And it was just really an impossible position. And I was a kid who suffered from emotional dysregulation. Like most people, I experienced experiences that were uncomfortable, and I just didn't have any resources to help me navigate that. So I was really passionate and interested in finding or developing a technology solution to support young people, because I just didn't see it in the marketplace. So that's where Clymb started, and it took us years of iterating and refining to land on the product that we have now, and to share emotional wellness with young people the way that we share it.
Yeah. And yeah, that's got to be difficult. You said it's an impossible job. It probably is, and there's probably a lot of people doing, impossible jobs in the education space. It is. Talk about something that's like just truly like selfless. I mean,
Yeah. You know, like educators for me are just so mission critical to the functioning of society. And that word, like selfless, that is sort of my place of passion. Like this company, Clymb, is my passion project. Like I'm totally passionate about helping people to create happiness. Like that is literally in our mission statement. to spread happiness through emotional wellness, right? That is what we're here to do. And because I experienced it, I mentioned that, as a kid, I was emotionally uncomfortable and I discovered techniques, I discovered resources, I discovered ways of living and approaching life that
Yeah.
really worked for me, and that continue to work for me. And I'm, you know, not to be cliche, but I am happy. And I would say that my definition of happiness is contentment with yourself, whatever the conditions of your life. Meaning that if things
Mm.
are up, I'm still content with myself and the value that I bring to this human experience. And if things seem as if I am in a valley, I am still content with myself. And as humans, so often we are on this conditional pendulum of I'm happy because things are going my way, and then I'm unhappy because things are not going my way. And I have found that there is a middle path, and that is to just, be happy. Whatever is happening, but that's a practice, that's a process, that's a way of retraining your brain and reframing your thought processes. And there are techniques and resources that help us to do that, and they work if you practice them consistently. So this is about consistency. Like if you want to move beyond conditions, you have
I
to
love it.
practice consistency.
I am almost at a loss for words. We're about 5 minutes in. I just want to thank you for that. That was like I already have half a page of notes. It's really cool that you started as a practitioner of happiness,
Mm-hmm.
right? I have this thing that I brought up, I feel like in at least 20% of these episodes about about being a practitioner versus a student. Both are good. And in areas you're really passionate about, I probably think you should be both, right? A student is you say, hey, Sean, I have a master's in positive psychology. I studied the brain, whatever. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
that route. A practitioner is I dealt with this, I
Mm-hmm.
fixed it
Yeah.
intentionally, right? It didn't just happen to me. I did something, I took
Mm-hmm.
action. That's so cool. And you said techniques. Did you like, did you find this on your own? I guess, like what age about were you like going through this consciously, right? Because
Yeah, yeah,
there,
yeah. It's a good
like
question.
as a young kid, like if you go through it, it's probably subconscious, right? You're just kind of rolling through
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I would say I started deliberately in college, so maybe 19 or 20. And that was over a decade ago for me. Um,
Barely.
yeah, yeah. No, not barely. It's a nice long time ago for me. But it didn't happen all at once. It's literally it's not even anything special. It's literally I started and I didn't stop. And I learned a few things and that helped me in that moment. And it continued to be really interesting to me until I explored other modalities and it continued to be interesting to me. And then the time passed and you develop this practice. It moves from a practice to really just a way of being because it's sort of how you operate. And it's no longer like I'm trying to do something. It's like this is what I do. This is how I operate. This is how I flow. Um, so
Yeah.
anytime I talk to anybody about like your happiness practices, as it relates to being unconditionally happy or unconditionally satisfied with yourself, I always say like you're not going to start at the end. The best place to start is right where you are, and just don't stop. It will evolve.
Hmm. You have no other choice to start where you are.
Yeah,
and
but
and
I mean, that is so true. But
people want to start at
humanly,
the end.
we always want to project ourselves to the top of the mountain as opposed to being happy that we are at the base, you know?
Yeah. It's man, it's so wise, right? To say that I heard Tim Ferriss and Naval Rafikant on a podcast years ago. Sometimes, when you like listen to a podcast or you hear a song, and you like remember exactly where you were and when it was when you heard it.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
at the time was living in Phoenix, Arizona, and I was taking a run to this mountain range, and I just like I got out of like the city and got into like the foothills of these houses, and it just started becoming like a grind, right? It went from like, oh, I'm just jogging on the street to like now I'm getting into these mountains. And I remember he was talking about stoicism, and he wasn't talking, he was trying to pull some of the principles from stoicism that he likes. And one is, if you want to be, he said something very similar to unconditionally happy. If you want to be unconditionally happy, you need to understand that you're working towards an ideal state, but you are where you are.
Mhm,
And it's not, where you are is
mhm.
not good, where you are is
Yeah,
not bad. Where you
yeah,
are, it is. That's what they always say, where you are is, or something like that.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
something's not good, something that's not bad, something just is, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's connected to this idea of acceptance. A part of being unconditionally happy is that level of acceptance that so often we want to fight against. Like, I am where I am, and it is, or this is what it is, and it is. We're so quick to put a value or a judgment on something. And if that
Mm-hmm.
value or judgment does not line up with our perceptions of what's good, that's when we feel unhappy, you know? So it is that what is that leads to that unconditional happiness.
Where did you get your your definition of unconditional contentment as like your happiness definition? Is that like, was that,
I
yeah.
mean, it's for me, it resonates as true. I will refer to a few similar sort of definitions that probably inspired me. There's the Buddhist concept of santosha, and santosha just means absolute contentment. It means that you don't have any attachments, you're at total peace with what is. That is the definition of santosha. Um, and so I think I pulled from that. And then there are some Vedic definitions as well. But for me, happiness just means like it doesn't matter what's going. That's freedom to me. That's peace. That's
That's
happiness to me.
freedom. That is
It
freedom.
doesn't
I
matter
love
what's
that word.
happening. I'm content. Yeah.
And okay, so it's so, this is just wild because, again, you're saying this word. I was recently at a conference with my friend Matt Choi in in Minnesota, and we met a lot of really cool people, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people in the health and wellness space, a lot of
Yeah.
people with it was like a conference around cryptocurrency, Gary V's conference. So a lot of young people with 10 million followers on Instagram that we met,
Mm-hmm.
and it just
Mm-hmm.
started getting me and Matt thinking about, like, happiness versus success versus just pleasure, right? And like all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I asked Matt to define happiness, and he did. And then um, I was like, I want to define it with the word content, but in like the wellness culture, the word content has a pretty strong negative connotation to it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, oh, you're content, Ashley. That means you're not growing, right? You're not ambitious
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. And so then I brought it up to my brother like the other day, and we started talking about it because to me, I think the definition of the word content is not negative at all. I would say, like a state of, you know um acceptance, something along that lines, right? But it's like a current state, and it's all about the unconditional aspect to me,
Mm-hmm.
because I think people tether to different conditions, right? A lot of times material things, a lot of times their environment, right? And then that's where people start building in stresses. They start to like live in this little box in their brain where it's like, as long as, like, I sleep in a comfortable bed, I wake up and I have my coffee, which I need, and then I get my daily dose of the news, and then I eat and I get stimulation from food, and then I go to work and I have so much stimulation at work, it keeps me going.
Mm-hmm.
And then what,
Mm-hmm.
these things string you along to like maybe being content, even if it's continuous, it's conditional.
But yeah, that's what I say ready to say. Is it real contentment though? Is it real happiness if it can be taken away from you? So that for me is the question.
Yeah.
If this is eliminated, can you still be at peace? If the answer is no, then it's not unconditional. It's not real contentment.
Yeah. And you talked about consistency to get you there. It's like playing a sport. It's like training for
Yeah.
something. You need a
Yeah,
practice, you
that's
know.
right.
Now, I think I shared with you that I like to do physical things, run, lift weights, play sports, like
Yeah.
that. Backpacking. So I've always like naturally been drawn towards those things. And I've started to realize over the years, I think it's because like this was all subconscious. I think it's slowly coming to the front of my brain. Is that like I'm kind of like realizing, like when like a run's a good example. When you take a run, you get tired and uncomfortable and out of
Mm-hmm.
breath and hot and
Mm-hmm.
sweaty and whatever, and you need to continue to run, right? You need to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And the easiest way to do it is definitely to just enjoy, like to enjoy it, right? I mean, don't resist. Do you have any techniques that you have? For me, like I guess like physical training, it's just so simple, right? Like you just like for like it's I guess it's natural for me. Do you have any like techniques? I know you talked about different things that might help somebody,
Yeah.
train their
Yeah.
happiness.
Yeah, train your happiness. For me, I'm a big meditation practitioner, a big meditation advocate. Start my day with meditation. I end my day with meditation. And meditation grants me clarity so that in those moments where I am attaching myself to things, or in those moments where I'm feeling agitated, and not like in the sense of she's agitated or irritated in that sense, but just in the sense of I have I'm not at peace. There's ripples in the lake within me. Meditation really has helped me to calm that. And I think that whether it's through physical activity or through something like meditation, whatever your practice is, it's all teaching the same skill, if that makes sense. So whatever
Absolutely.
your entry point, it's okay.
Absolutely. So I gotta ask, how often, so you said every morning and night, but all right, you said morning
Mhm.
and nights. How often do you practice meditation? Daily?
Yeah, I meditate every day, twice a day.
And how consistent do you think you are with it? Like 100%, 90%?
I'm probably 90% consistent with meditating for the past few years. And it
Years.
doesn't
See?
mean that, huh? I'm sorry.
No, I said years. See, like most people are like, yeah, I've been crushing it the last week.
Yeah, for the past few years. And I will say, I don't always want to meditate, even after all of this time. Sometimes I don't want to do it, but I'm still like, okay, I'm going to do this anyway because this brings me a lot of value.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely love that. I think the 90% is almost like the perfect percent, because I would say the things that mean a lot to me are like hard daily workouts, and I'd say I get them 90% of days. I get plenty of movement 100% of days, but I'm talking like real training. The reason I
Yep.
say 90% is good and in some ways better than 100% is we got to live life.
Hmm.
Like you got to live life.
Hmm.
Like there's sometimes maybe you like you're it's the holidays, you get woken up by a family member, you get right into something, and then like whatever, like everything gets going, and hey, that's great. Or like last night I got a chance to be with my dad and my brother, which I don't get all the time, as well as my brother's girlfriend, my girlfriend. And like I'm usually like in bed at 8. Ashley, I'm like in bed at 8 because I wake up early. And I was like, like I'm just not gonna wake up early tomorrow. So I skip. So I generally do like journaling and meditation in the morning. Skipped it. I generally lift weights. Skipped it. I got my run in, which was my number one priority. And it's rare that I skip that, but like sometimes you just gotta live. But what I want to ask you is, so meditation, you said that you don't always want to do it, but then you do it.
Mhm,
So at some point you want to do it or decide to do
mhm,
it. What's that like internally? Like to keep going, because now we're getting to the point of discipline, right? So
mhm.
it's funny how it's like relating to the title, happiness, life's ultimate
Yeah,
discipline, but you're talking
yeah,
about the discipline of building your happiness.
yeah, yeah.
um
Um, I mean, at first it just feels like resistance, like I don't want to, but within each of us, even with we all have that, like, I don't want to, I don't feel like it, but we can overcome that. Like we can still speak to that and be like, I'm gonna get up and do it, even though it's difficult. Like it's just I'm gonna get up and do it. But once I'm in the practice of it, like once I'm meditating, it becomes easier. The discipline comes from the mental chatter, from the thing within you that says, this is hard, I can't, I don't want to. If you can get over that, the doing of the thing is not that bad. I mean, that's
it's
what I
it,
found to be the
it
truth.
never is. It never,
Yeah.
well, they say like peak motivation comes after you started something.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've ever heard of like the 2 minute drill or something like that. There are people that say, so like again, I relate it to running because that's what I've thought about. And
Mhm, mhm,
um so for running, like let's say Ashley, you're like, I want to start running every single day. I would say, all right, what's a 2 minute drill? So do the first 2 minutes. So actually, the first 2 minutes is um, get your running clothes, get your running shoes on, grab a water bottle, put your headphones in, get your music playing, and step outside and lock the door. So now
mhm,
you're outside, you got your music playing, you got your water bottle, you're in your running shoes, the door's locked. That's all you have
mhm,
to do. And then from then, if you
mhm,
feel like running, run. If you don't, go back inside.
mhm,
And you'd have to be crazy if you're outside and you're running clothes and you want to run and the door's locked and you're like
mhm,
ready to go. Of course, you're just gonna go, right?
mhm,
But it's when you're like sitting back on the couch and you're like, should I go? Should I not? It's like, of
mhm.
course, in that moment, you
Yep,
don't want to.
yep, yeah. You definitely have to, like, take some actions towards it,
Hmm.
and then it gets easier.
Yeah. Do you ever try to like think about the benefits of it?
Of meditating, of doing the thing, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Do you ever like? I find myself doing that sometimes. Like for me, the hardest thing is probably consistently eating healthy. I love
Mhm.
healthy food, but I love all food.
Yep, yep.
So, sometimes like I just need to like I just think like this is just like this is just healthier. Like just like again, like just start chopping vegetables with no plan, and then it turns
Yeah.
into a salad or something.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's the purpose that drives it for me. It's like
Yeah.
a part of the practice is sort of like me choosing what my values are and how I'm going to show up for myself. And so connected to that are the benefits of like, okay, this is
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
for me. This helps me to be a better CEO. This helps me to be a better friend. This helps me to be a better human. This helps me to be unconditionally happy. So I definitely lean into my why in those moments where it feels really challenging.
Hmm. And what's your meditation practice like? Like, do you just sit and follow your breath, or?
So I practice a specific meditation technique that was given to me from my meditation teacher, and it's a very old meditation practice from India. You know, it's thousands of years old. So I have a routine that I do during that time. And then there are other types of meditation practices that I might do where I choose to connect to my breath. But sort of the meditation practice that bookends my day at the start and at the end is this
Yeah.
technique that I was taught from my teacher.
And what's that like? What's the name of the technique?
So it's called Kriya, but I can't like tell you what the technique is. But it's called a Kriya meditation.
Nice.
Yeah.
Korea. I'll have to look into it. It's secret.
Well, I don't know that it's secret, but it's passed from student to teacher. So I'm not a
Love it.
teacher and I don't have a student.
I I love the respect.
Yeah.
Um, but is it? I guess what I'm trying to get at without like picking too deep is, would you say it's more about like real, like breath work is like, it's like physical kind of versus, or like fine. Is it more like intellectual, right? Because there are meditations where it's like, okay, like really think about this and visualize this, or would you say
So
it's more
I would
like,
say that's not actually meditation. So meditation is
mm,
to move beyond concept. It's not to cling to what the mind can produce. But this meditation it uses a combination of breath work. So there is breath work involved, and then quiet. And it's not a quiet of like bringing in an image to mind or anything like that. It's just sitting in stillness.
yeah, yeah? I think you're right. I would say I don't know a better term for the like the more intellectual thing that I'm thinking about than like
Yeah.
maybe inner work.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I talk about it a lot because it's something that I'm trying to go through now.
Mhm.
I find it easier for me to do inner work than meditate. And again,
Mhm.
to define it for me, inner work would be like, let's say I'm trying to one of the things that I want to do is retire when I'm by 30. So I want to
Yeah.
retire by 30 years old, and we
Yeah.
can get into what the definition of retirement is for me at another
Mhm.
point. And the way that one something that I think is important is to like really visualize, okay, what am I going to do when I retire? How am I going to provide service to
Yep.
people? What
Yep.
sensations am I going to feel? What am I going to
Yep.
see? Like visualizations. To me, that's, and what limiting beliefs are in the way. That's a big one.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
Not really
Mhm.
focusing more on emotion and feeling than like cognitive thought, but it's
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
still front cortex
Yeah.
intellectual. Um, and when I think meditation, you said, what did you say meditation was? Separating yourself from
Mhm.
concept.
Well, it's a letting go of concept. So what you're speaking
Yeah,
about is like visualizing, which is sort of like working with mental images to get clear about what's forthcoming or to heal something internally. And then meditation is like stilling all of that, like allowing everything to go. But I find both of them to be helpful techniques. They both really work
yeah.
well. Yeah.
I might need to follow up with you and figure out who your teacher was, because I do find it difficult for me um, to let go, like and meditate. And I practice
Hmm.
meditation. If I was being honest, probably 30% of days. I try to
Yeah.
do it every day. About 30% is probably realistic, twice a week,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, where I practice kind of like my more visualization strategies pretty regularly. Even
Yeah.
even I find things that because I'm trying to do my meditations with no guidance. I have a weird feeling about these guided meditations.
What do you feel about them?
So I feel I'm on both sides. So I think
Okay.
the I'm on both sides of the coin, right? One is that like they're a terrific asset, right?
Hmm.
They help guide you, of course, like a teacher would, and if you were truly like meditating, it doesn't matter if you have alarms going off. Doesn't matter what's happening. You can separate from concept, as you're saying. But on the other side, they don't feel natural. Like
Mm.
I feel like I'm a big believer that your environment dictates your your behavior. So, for example, I can stretch right here on the floor, but if I really wanted to go stretch after a run, I'd walk to the other side of the apartment complex and go into the gym. Because in the
Mhm.
gym, when my cell phone's at home, I'm going to stretch. Like
Mhm.
my mind
Mhm.
will relax and I will focus on stretching. Where here, you're naturally gonna, while you're stretching, your phone rings. Oh, I could talk on the phone and stretch. Like,
Mhm.
but no,
Mhm.
you can't, right? So, like, the natural form of meditation to me would be silence or a very light ambiance and like very quiet, calm setting. So, yeah,
Mhm.
why? You seem to perk up when I ask that question.
I just I've never heard it before, so it was interesting to me. It also made me think of our conversation and what we were speaking about earlier of starting where you are. And so I think that building up to that quiet, silent meditation, it is a build up to that practice, especially when we're used to stimulation. And I think that guided meditation helps us to get to that place where it's natural for us to sit with some ambiance music and or in stillness and
Yeah.
quiet. But yeah, that was the first time that I'd heard that. I was like, oh wow, tell me more.
No, I didn't know, because like I have heard some people have like strong opinions, like you need a teacher, and then I've had some people be like, like that's completely not even meditation, which I mean, if you're judging someone on meditation, that's like
You
defeating
should
the
keep
purpose.
meditating.
Yeah,
I'm
I
like, if you're judging, you should keep meditating.
yeah, it's one of my favorite quotes. I bring it up all the time. Naval Ravikant says it because we're both entrepreneurs, right? We have companies where, like, at the end of, like, 8 hours of work, we can, finally get to emails and
Hmm.
finally get to like managing our teams. And then at the end of that 4 hours, we can then do the legal, the finance,
Yep.
the back end stuff. So like there's so much work, and not to say everyone doesn't have that much work, right? Like we're not special at all. But Naval's quote is, you should meditate for at least 30 minutes a day, unless you're extremely busy, right? You have family, you're trying to exercise, eat healthy, you have a really important job, and if you're just so busy, you need to meditate for at least an hour a day.
Hmm. Hmm. I
And I
agree with
just
that
love the
quote totally.
yeah, right. It's like it's true. It's true. I just had this thought. I think one of the reasons I don't meditate like I exercise is like it's very easy to get to see the tangible results of exercise, right? Like,
Yeah, that's true.
and you want to move past the material world, but huh, that's interesting. You've inspired me. I really want to focus on bringing, meditation into my day. It's really interesting how many things tie to the basics. Eating healthy, good relationships,
Hmm.
meditation, drinking water, sleeping right. Like,
Hmm.
if people could just get their basics, everything in life seems to fall into place.
I agree.
You're like, that's my whole company. We haven't even talked much about Climb. I don't know the story about really what drove you to start to take the leap, right? I'm reading the book The
Yeah,
Big
I
Leap.
mean, it wasn't that the story isn't much more complex than the way that I started. Just
Yeah,
being at the school, I said I'm either gonna, this is my life. If I have an idea, why not go for it? I'm either gonna fall or I'll fly, and either way I'll learn. Um, so that's
you're
literally
just
how
like
it
you're
started.
just so cool. You're like, yeah, just start a company, quit my job, take a huge risk. It's easy.
Yeah, I mean, but
Um,
it's like this is my life. This is my opportunity to live out what's inside of me. And if
mhm.
I'm not willing to advocate for myself and for my vision, who else can I expect to do that? I didn't assume that I would figure it out. The possibility of failure felt very, very real and tangible, but I felt that if I failed, at least I tried. At least I gave myself an opportunity
Yeah,
to see if it would work, And so that's
yeah.
literally what inspired me to just go. I had a vision. And not even just a vision, like I could feel what this product could be and what it could do in this world. And it just grabbed a hold of me, and I'm like, I deserve to see this out, whatever however this ends.
So you just said not even a vision. First of all, congratulations. It's cooler than you're making it out to be. you're living the dream, and I mean that. But you caught my attention with the sentence, I had a vision. Well, not even a vision, a feeling.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you caught that, but you basically said a feeling's more powerful than a vision.
Hmm.
I, what I don't know if that was just completely like unconscious, or like you that's something that you definitely know and feel. Can
I
you
mean,
elaborate a little on that?
that's, yeah, that's like connected to the law of attraction, right? So it's your feeling nature that drives creation. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, that's probably where that came from. And I
that's
actually
yeah,
do believe that. I do believe that if you can get yourself in a space of feeling your joy or your happiness, or um whatever it might be, I will say, that this is a catch 22, that there is a level of expertise to utilizing your feeling nature, because if you're not careful, you will utilize it towards attachment, meaning that my feeling nature, my joy, is connected to whatever that outcome is at the end. For me, feeling nature is just like a knowing. It's like a fireworks going off inside of me. It's like a gong being hit. That is an indication to me that I'm on the right track, that okay, this is inspired. I'm feeling this. Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that, that example, that specific example about yourself. That's where my head was going, was around the law of attraction, around feeling. Um,
Hmm.
that is one of those more like inner work type sessions that I try to do. And I got it from the second person I was ever on this podcast, Tony Benici. I should send you his episode. He told me that, he is like, his practice is like several hours every morning
Hmm.
of this like
Hmm.
visualization. He says like he gets to the point where he's like, he's trying to talk about like things that are like exciting, and obviously exciting things can be scary and cause really strong reactions. He told me that almost every morning, by when he's doing his like visualization, he's like dripping in sweat. He has like chicken skin. He's like, like crazy, like physical manifestations of this feeling. And it's like, of course, like he manifests these things into life. Like that energy is so strong,
Yep.
Ashley. Um, I always, when I think about, I totally believe in the law of attraction, and really like the primary law of vibrations. And I mean,
Hmm.
people you can measure the electrical waves of thoughts, and I
Yep.
think that's what like sends things out into the world, which
Hmm.
is awesome. But if you want to attract the magnet's the feeling, right?
Yep.
That's the magnet for sure.
Yep. Yeah.
So you really must have felt this, which is why you answered so question so calmly about how you just started this thing easily. I I I I I respect that big time, because I think there's a lot of people out there doing things that they don't necessarily love. And I'm wondering how
Which is
clear was
also emitting a vibrational pattern and attracting more of that which I do not love. So,
it's
yeah.
all cyclical.
Yeah. It's all cyclical. You're right.
It's actually crazy. Man, I started recently like this networking group. I don't even know the name for it. I think I'm gonna call it like the impact group. Right now, it's literally it's like 18 people, and the group's like the um I think I call it like the high energy group. And we've had 2 monthly meetings, and I'm trying to bring people together because there's so many amazing people in this world that I just want to connect. Heather and Kent McKean, they run a company called Mind Change. I've been doing a lot of work with them, and it's all about how like you store your memories as matter in your brain. And then so like if you're thinking something, Ashley, like I am someone who, inspires other people to be happy, right? Your brain
Mhm.
is then going to go find an example in your memory bank that reinforces that thought. And if you keep thinking it, and there, you keep thinking, you keep storing these memories up, and then it becomes part of what you think and when you feel more, and then it starts to attract it back into your life. So now you're creating new memories that reinforce that same thought, which is going to make you feel that sensation stronger. And it's just like,
Yeah.
it's like this thing. And it just got me, thinking that, like, I've never, like, anyone that's been on the podcast or anyone I worked with, I've never kind of like thought about bringing to this group, but this group is like a passion project for me. Maybe it's something I'm gonna take a bigger leap like you did, because I don't know how, like, the world, I want to make the world smaller and connect
Yeah.
all these people, because, like, I'm hearing what you're saying, and what I told you in the beginning of trying to hold people down for an hour is not even enough. I feel like actually we could talk about this forever. How'd you get introduced to the law of attraction?
Um, I mean, I don't know. It was years ago. I mean, I've been
Yeah,
a practitioner for, I don't know, about a decade. um, but yeah, I mean, the law of attraction to me is just sort of what is. I don't even think of it as like something that you can bring a deliberateness and an intention to it, but it's an operation whether you're working with the laws or not, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Like, um, yeah. So I'm a believer in the law of attraction for sure. It's just like how things operate and how things flow and how things function for us as human people. And I also agree with you about what you were just sharing about how the brain can connect with those memories. And in fact, the brain, like if we have a belief, like I believe X, Y, and Z, the brain will scan the environment to find evidence to support its supposition. So we always get to be right. And so it's always good to sort of question, what are your underlying beliefs? What are
yeah.
your values? Because it's literally driving your perception of the world. And you're literally creating as you go
Hmm.
along, because your brain is like, okay, you said this, so here is this, and you can filter it through that lens, and then you get to be right about what you might not want to be right about.
Yeah. It so then it comes to being aware of, like, bringing it back to meditation, right? it
Absolutely.
it,
To
it
gain
comes to
that
being back of,
awareness.
if you're aware of those thoughts, you can change them, address them,
That's exactly
shut
right.
them down, because otherwise you're going to have these thoughts. And what you're talking about is so right. I think they call it the reticular activating system, in your brain, where it's like, you ever go shopping for, like, a black Honda Accord, and then you get on the road and every car is a black Honda
It's a
Accord.
black Honda Accord. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
right.
Like
That's
I've
what it
never
is.
seen so many black Honda
Yeah.
Accords before. It's like, yeah, because it wasn't in your awareness, and your brain is identifying that, which is interesting to you. This brain is like a machine. And so when you can understand how your machine functions, you can manage the output as well as the input a lot better.
Oh man. I I'm looking at the clock and I know you gotta go. So Ashley, I just want to say that this conversation is going to be continued over lunch or dinner sometime in the next couple of weeks, because I'm really
Yeah.
looking forward to it. Um, where can people go to find out a little bit more about what you're doing with Climb?
Yeah, just go to the website. It's Climb Up, and Climb is spelled CLYMB. So www.climbup.io to learn
Mm.
more about the software.
You guys should check it out. She's revolutionizing the wellness space, with organizations. I've, as you know, I've done a lot in that behavioral wellness space
Hmm.
there, Ashley, and nobody is helping kids like
Hmm.
you are. And it's awesome what you're doing. And it's obviously going to get legs. Everyone thinks, we've seen the wellness movement since COVID, but we're just getting started. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many ideas that are coming out that are just wonderful, and I love the reprioritization of wellness in this world. So thank you for being one of those people driving that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sean. It's great to be here.
Appreciate you.